It's the one word that every one of us avoids in every situation. Help.
Yeah.
I need help.
It's difficult.
Rerouting, right? Directions. I need help.
It's difficult.
I think the first time that you ask for help, it is hard. The second time that you ask for help, it's a little bit easier. That third time that you ask, it gets easier, and it at least for me, it has.
I think it's always difficult.
Yeah.
To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be all right, so quit your
I mean, dude, as soon as you say vulnerable and emotional with men, it's like, yeah, I ain't crying or whatever.
Just play Rudy. I cry every time.
And like, well, I cried at dumb movies. We're not going to get into that. Stupid Edward Scissorhands. You know, I just related to the guy that got picked on for no reason. And I didn't even have scissors on my hand. Anyway, there's strength to be had in vulnerability. And primarily men see it as a weakness. Like, I can't be affected by these things. I always have to be up. I always have to be game. I always have to be like nothing affects me. You know what I mean? I'm a rock. And reality, that's not us, or we shouldn't be that. We end up burying junk inside us and masking emotions and compensating for all of these kind of things where you know, the strength in just being real in those things that affect us and why is really a better option. Some people are more prone to tears. I'm not saying every man has to go around crying.
I think we all thought of one person. I know I did. I know you did.
So ask.
I know you did.
I'm not.
KD.
Oh, yes, they are.
Kevin Durant. No.
I'm not that far. You know, but there's things that get brought up, whether it's talking to youth or young adults or my kids or my wife or, man, music that plays, stuff like that has an emotional response.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in remembrance of something good,
Right.
remembrance of something terrible or whatever. And it's like, I can't not let this emotion out.
Well, I mean,
so
they're
to speak.
100%. They're praise and worship songs that, as soon as the music starts and that lyric starts, like I spring a leak, like my face starts leaking, and I'm not ashamed of it. But like you said, it pulls on something emotional in you, whether it's like you said, whether it's tied to, you know, a good experience, a bad experience. It's just how those things are. And we joke about KD, but I can be like that too. And sometimes it's like you don't plan on it.
I never plan on it.
Right. And you're doing perfectly fine.
Right. Yeah.
And you're having a conversation, or you're in praise and worship, or it's even happened to me.
Sunday.
Watching Edward Scissorhands.
Maybe not.
Not Edward
Not
Scissorhands.
Edward
No.
Scissorhands.
Terminator 2. I cried
No.
in that movie too.
No.
No. Old Yeller?
Yeah.
No.
I don't care about
No.
Rudy.
What is wrong with you? Rudy's a good
that. I
one.
didn't cry at Rudy either. I was like, I don't know.
The
why
first
I let
movie
him
I
play.
cried at was Savannah Smiles. Do you remember that?
What is that?
She was kidnapped on accident by these two guys who stole a car, and she was asleep in the back seat. This little girl. You don't remember that movie?
No.
I was
Is it like it's a serious movie?
It was a comedy series. Yeah, no, it was a
Comedy about a girl getting kidnapped?
Yeah, it was it was. They were really
Raising
nice. And
Arizona?
they're like, what happened? We
That's
just, you know,
an awesome movie.
amazing. Movie.
Yes. One of the most quotable movies, too.
No, I like, okay, so those movies, just because I mentioned them and they're very random, right? But they hit on something where, for me, Edward Scissorhands, I was probably 20, 21, something like that. We were watching it, me and my wife and one of our friends. And like, you know, the end, this mob is chasing him, right? He's different. He's They think all of these things about him, and they're out to get him. They want to kill him. It's like the mob, not the mafia, but like a mob. And, it brought something out in me of that always feeling out of place.
Right.
Like for me, it was a connection to childhood and growing up and feeling out of place, and you don't belong, and nobody really understands you, and all of those things. And so there was an emotional response because I could relate to, in different degrees, in different scenarios, being an outcast or feeling different or feeling, whatever. Terminator 2, on the other hand, again, you've got this jacked up kid, right? And he finds a father figure. And then at the end, this father figure sacrifices kind of himself. He takes himself out of the equation, whether it's for safety of the kid, whether, whatever. And so that's what happened. In Terminator 2, there was this relation to a father figure that drew on, on emotion, whether, again, good or bad or whatever. And, my wife makes fun of me for Edward Scissorhands, but
Rightfully so.
So do I.
I mean, it's not one of those normal.
Deserving.
It's not Steel Magnolias or
We might be
something
making
like that.
fun of you at the same time, right? Here. It's
And
okay.
again, I don't care.
Well, look, at least for you,
You're vulnerable.
it's the random movie that does it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll openly admit it. Like, I get caught up in the sappy women's movies. Like, I start off with, yes, I'll sit down and
He's a
watch this
Notebook
movie
guy.
with you, Kate. I am. That is so funny that you say that.
I am too, though. Dude.
I-
like,
What'd you
I
say?
can watch
The
that with
Notebook.
my wife.
Like he jokingly said that, but I mean, I think the first time that I watched it because of the person and it was Casey, the person that I was watching it with, and I was like,
Brooke forced
and then
that
the
one
next thing I
down.
know, I'm like, and it is. It's that.
Well, that's the funny
It's
thing
that
is we all act
time.
like we're not that guy, and then we're like,
I'm definitely not that guy.
And here's the deal. I think deep down inside, every guy has, whether it's Edward Scissorhands or Terminator 2, whether it's The Notebook, whatever it is, everybody's got that one thing that gets them. But I mean, as far as being vulnerable and being able to show your vulnerability, like whenever I look at it, like out in the world, in the workplace, and I see somebody that is confident enough to be vulnerable with their emotions, like, to me, that's like, okay, that's somebody that I either want to get to know better, or if it's in a leadership position, like, that's somebody I'm going to follow. Like, and then you've got to gauge it in, because it's all in, emotions aren't bad. How you react to those emotions are the key to it.
Yeah, you can't be ruled by them.
No, you can't. Or you've got to give yourself
time and place.
that time to go, all right, for the next 2 days, I'm going to have my pity party about it. But as soon as that third day starts, that pity party's over, and boom, I'm looking forward and I'm moving forward. But like we see it, I deal with it right now a lot with my kids in sports, or my kids with friends and how they react, or my daughter, like I was just talking about, whenever she wakes up late for school. It's how are you going to handle that emotion? It's not wrong to have that emotion. It's not wrong to wake up and freak out because you're used to having an hour to get ready and now you've got 25 minutes. But how are you going to handle that emotion?
Yeah.
What process are you going to take with it? There's nothing wrong with being angry, but there is something wrong acting on that anger, right?
Right.
So,
Paul says, "Be angry, but do not sin."
right.
Right.
So the acting on that anger,
Well, and that becomes that righteous indignation.
Right.
It's an anger for what's that? The movie that just came out with kid trafficking and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
man.
With Jim
Sound of
Caviezel.
Freedom.
Sound of
Sound of
Freedom. That's
Freedom.
it. And it's like, dude, there's an anger
Right.
that wells up. There's a place from like,
I mean, it stirs you up. Man.
like
That
this
stirred
is
me up.
this
Like
is so wrong. This is no kid anywhere.
going to battle.
You know, those kind of things. And so there's a place where, I mean, we're created with emotions.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's not like, okay, well, you've got these, don't use them. But it's the application. And again, I think because, you know, talking about kids too, it's like, I mean, small kids, they're ruled by emotions.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm hurt, I'm hungry, I feel, and
Yeah.
it rules everything. And as adults, we can't operate that way. You know what I mean? They're like, we can't be ruled by our emotions and how we feel at the moment, because if that was true, 3 days out of 5, I don't feel like going to work. You know what I mean?
Only 3?
Wow.
But it's like
Don't sell yourself short.
those, and there's probably an exaggeration. I'm happy to be working and all of those things, but like, you know what I mean? If it was based on what I feel like, and I think for men, this is like where it gets tricky, because we come real close from that generation of men don't show pain, they don't show sadness or emotion. They don't show any of those things. You just suck it up, and whatever's in front of you, that's what you tackle, with zero excuses, zero complaint, zero anything.
And the conviction sets in right there, because I was a suck it up buttercup dad. You know, I'm like, because what were we told our whole life? Rub some dirt on it, kid. Get out there. And I take pride in being told, hey, you have a high pain tolerance. I'm like,
Yeah, dude, poke me in the eye.
punch me. Give me tennis elbow.
But, you know, I think even with, like, so coming from that generation, or one generation out of that generation, where our parents still had a lot of that upbringing of, this is how men act. This is like, this is it. This is the process. I went to my mother's funeral and I didn't even shed a tear. You know, that kind of, like, you know what I mean? It's cutting off all of our emotionality. And I don't know why with men, as soon as you say emotional and as soon as you say vulnerable, we automatically think of crying.
Right.
But there's so much more, you know, there's so much more to it, where we can express, whether it's to our wife or to our kids, like really how we feel. Like at this moment, I feel, and letting them see behind the curtain.
Yeah.
You know, because we always think we got to have it together. Like I got to be the guy.
Right.
I got to be the guy that's got it all together. My kid got a problem, I'm the guy. My wife got a problem, I'm the guy. Somebody else's kid, problem, this, church, whatever, I'm the guy. I got you.
And that's where we get the stop, though, from them, is you don't need to fix everything, right? That's where I'll fight through it and try to. But go on with your thought. I'm sorry to interrupt,
and it's not being the fixer, because there's a reason why people come to you, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously, you have something.
Well, I think we
That
talked about
confidence.
that.
Yeah, you have.
In the last episode.
You're different, or better. There is a reason. There's a steadiness.
Yeah.
There's a solidity to who you are. They can depend on you. They can trust you. They know that you're safe. You're a safe place.
Right.
But what I've seen more effective, even than being the bastion against all evil, is being able to connect on that emotional. I understand what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I know where you're at, instead of, you know, take on the world with a, you know, sharpened stick. And
that's where our relationships have gone deeper, is because we've learned that warmth, right? That comfort you have to create with a certain amount of vulnerability or emotional, like, evidence that you're human, right? Like, that's the biggest thing is, you know, our kids, our wives, our friends see our facade in different situations. We even talked about this in the last episode and how we act in every situation. How are we going to be more godlike? It's, you know, how inviting are we? Like, one of the biggest compliments I ever got was, I don't know what it is about you, Jeff, but when you step in a room, you just bring this calming presence. And I took that to heart, and I'm like, I want to bring that into every argumentative situation I step into in work, I step into with my kids. That's the hardest place for me to bring it to be honest. But it's also warmth and inviting and the light we've talked about shining through us. And it, because we're different in a way, right? But that's what I equate it to in a way, is just emotional and vulnerable is how inviting are you.
Yeah.
But
Right?
I also think that at the same time we don't need to demonize that old school
No.
male, because there are times that we do have to
100%.
Hold it together.
100%. There are times that we have to step in front of and fill that gap, you know, for whatever it is that's coming our way, whether it is a struggle with work, whether it is a struggle in friendship, whether it is struggle for our kids at school. Like, we have to at times put our feelings and our emotions to the side and be that almost stoic, you know, character in our family's life. And I think the vulnerability side is, once that situation is handled, to be able to step back and then deal with those emotions the way that they need to be dealt with.
No, absolutely.
But there is 100% a time where we do have to, and I mean, that's what that's what courage is. That's what being brave is. Even if you're faking it in the moment, whether it's real or whether you're faking it, it's still courage. It's still bravery. Because in that moment, you are doing what you have to do, you know, to protect
Right.
whoever that is that you're protecting. But at the same time, I think having that tribe and having that group of friends that when you are struggling with something, you can go to them. You could pick up the phone and give them a call. We've had conversations. And like, you have to have that person there that you can just drop all of your guards, break down every wall that you've built up around you, and go, man, I can't do this by myself.
Absolutely.
Like, I need help, and I need a brother right now.
Yeah.
I've put up that defense for too long. I don't know how to handle this situation anymore, and I need somebody to pray for me. I need somebody to check in with me. I need somebody to walk with me through this. And that, to me, is that vulnerable side, because as men, we do have a responsibility. It's that same responsibility that you talked about, that you're telling that kid that's coming to pick up your daughter. Like, I'm a father. I have to do this, this, and this. And sometimes we've got to continue to do this, this, and this, even when we're having battles or issues or problems that we have. And that vulnerable side is being able to, whether it's your wife, whether it's a good friend, you know, the coworker at work.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that is, as the three of us sitting here, I have to know you well enough to be able to step in and maybe open that door to that conversation. Like,
Right.
hey, man, something's not right, Jeff. Like, let's go grab coffee, and give you the opportunity, because it's hard. It's hard as a guy to ask for help.
Everybody wants accountability until somebody says, man, you acting dumb. You know what? Get out of my business.
Right. But it's, you wrapped it up with the bow at the end there. It's the one word.
Manly bow.
The manly bow. It's the one word that every one of us avoids in every situation, help.
Yeah.
I need help.
It's difficult.
Rerouting, right? Directions. I need help.
It's difficult.
I can't do this in work. I need help.
But I will say this:
shows,
it's not that it is difficult.
it takes capability out of your hands, though.
But I think the first time that you ask for help, it is hard. The second time that you ask for help, it's a little bit easier. That third time that you ask, it gets easier, and it at least for me, it has.
I think it's always difficult.
Yeah, I'm not saying, but yes, but because you know the result, because
of
you know
course.
that first time that you did it,
It's the one word that holds us back, though, in everything, in our families, in our relationships,
Help.
in our workspace, in our lives, in our relationships with our kids. I mean, you could equate it all down to the fear of what does that word expose in me to others
yeah, with that
and
pride.
in myself.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Pride is
Pride.
pride is a big,
Yeah.
big part. It's like, no, I can't. They'll look at me this, and it's rooted in the idea that we have to be
Yeah.
this picture that we've built, right? Because my wife's not putting on any pressure on me to be this thing that I have in my mind. I think you were saying something about it earlier, though. I think as men, I used to do a men's group, and it was called Hero. And it's like men are built to be heroes. We're built to be heroic. We're built to want to save the day. We're built to be that guy. You know what I mean? And that's why most of us are drawn to action movies and, battle scenes. And it's like there's something in us where that's
Right.
like, this is part of who I'm made to be. At the same time, it's like my wife doesn't always need the warrior.
True.
My kids don't always need the warrior. They need to be able to see a complete picture of, what a man is supposed to be. And it's even Jesus wept.
Right.
You know what I mean? That there was his friend, Lazarus was they were friends. They
Right.
were close. Yeah. And even on the way, he's like, I'm going to wake him up. I'm going to raise him. This miracle is about to happen. And yet there's an emotional vulnerability, and he weeps over, over his friend, over Lazarus.
Right.
And, the completeness that we're supposed to walk in, where, it's not just the warriors that connect. It's not just the, the hyper emotional that connect, but that there's a completeness in who we are. And I absolutely agree. There are times where, man, we have to step out front. We have to take the brunt. We have to be the solid. I think of things that have gone on in my family where, we almost lost one of our girls once, accident, and my wife was falling apart. And everything's going crazy, and all the doctor's reports are bad, and all of this stuff. And there's that moment where if I break now, she, apart from Jesus, her earthly representation, because we're supposed to reflect him in everything that we do. We're supposed to show Jesus through us. That physical representation that she has can't crack right now, can't break right now, can't fall apart right now. Babe, everything's going to be fine. We're praying. We got people praying, and we stand firm. Even on the inside, we're all squishy. And it's like, as that thing kind of dissipated, and then there were moments where I could kind of get off on my own. and process those emotions and have my moments with God and, other guys I had in my life that I could talk to and be real with at the time and fall apart, for lack of better words, for a bit.
The key to what you're saying right there is you still have to have that conversation with God. Mm-hmm. You still have to, and I think it's exemplified in Job. When he goes through everything that God allowed him to go through, and the conversations that he had, and at the end of the day, it wasn't like, we will get to the point that it's like, why God, are you letting this happen? Like, why? And we can sometimes say things out of anger, out of frustration, out of lack of understanding. That can sound abrasive, harsh, and offensive when we have a conversation with God. But at the end of the day, we're having a conversation with God.
Yeah.
And it's when we don't have that conversation and then we lean on our own strength and we try and say, I'm going to tackle this on my own. I can get this done.
Heck no.
What?
That's when you crumble. That's when things fall apart. And the key to it is, like you're talking about with Jen, when she was in that situation, the only reason that you're able to hold it together, the only reason that you're able to give her that strength that she needs is because God's giving you the strength that you need to do that. And if you're not going there and you're not having that conversation, that's when we struggle. That, to me, is when we start to have that breakdown in mental health because we can't do it on our own. And like your story is very similar. And I will say this, I think one of the greatest gifts that God has given me is the gift of faith. I have a very strong belief that no matter what God puts in front of me, with him, I'm going to be able to get through it. And whatever's on that other side is better than what was in that storm or before that storm. We had just had Gray. I can remember this like it was yesterday. I was meeting Casey in line to go vote. And it was in Buda, down on the main street. Whenever the voting was on the main street of Buda, and I was coming from work and meeting her there. And Gray was he was in a stroller, so he was in a carrier. Mm-hmm. And I get there, and it took me a little while because we're knuckleheads as guys sometimes. But I finally looked at Casey, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she looked at me and just immediately just broke down. She was like, I just got laid off. It was in 2008. She was like, I just got laid off. I don't know what we're going to do. We depend on my income on top of yours, and we just had a kid. She was freaking out.
Yeah.
And I knew in that moment that I had to be there for her. I had to support her in some way, shape, or form. And because of the relationship that I had established with God, I had no problem looking at her and going, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, we can make adjustments. We can make changes. I, for the time being, I can support this family. We're going to be fine. God is going to lead us through this. And at that moment, it was scary, but that was probably the best thing that could have happened to us because at that point, she became a stay-at-home mom, and we made some changes. We made some sacrifices. We prayed about it, and we figured out what we had to do. But that allowed her to be able to stay home with Gray and then Harper, and it turned into her starting a business out of the house, all because of a relationship that we had with Christ and the faith that he had given me and the strength that he had given me in that moment to stand there with her when she thought the world was crumbling.
Right.
Newborn baby, lost a job. So
how did a newborn baby get a job?
Right. Well, the crazy thing about this is you guys were speaking through it, and I was thinking through the physical picture in Scripture. of what it is we're actually talking about. And I got straight to Ephesians 6, 6:10, in the armor of God, right? And I mean, we laugh because it's such a cue in a church to talk about it. But at the same time, you know, that physical picture of a Roman soldier where they have to stand back to fight and cover each other. And that's what we're looking for in relationship with each other too, is we're taught, you know, where two or more are gathered, his presence is there, right? And that's why even us gathering at this table, we know we're protected. Like, yeah, there's going to be words and people that don't agree with the words that are coming here.
Right.
But in brotherhood, we have protection because you have my back. It's like, you know, just like you talk about other churches in the world too. And it's like, well, we're not out here to take other members from other congregations. We're in the same foxhole, fighting the same fight and trying to push people to relationship. And that's where, like...
You're just on another beachhead.
Right. Right.
Yep.
You know, it's like, who's taking the flak? Who's got my back? And that's where we step in relationship too. In your story with Casey, it's like, here I come.
Yeah.
I got your back. And it was funny because I actually first, they were talking about fighting, and I was thinking about the movie 300, how the 300 men beat 10,000. Well, it was that whole picture of all the brothers had each other's back when they would make that shield.
And a lot of abs.
With a lot of abs.
Yeah.
A lot of abs. But they would use their shields to shield each other. And kind of, and it's funny because I even looked up and spoke a youth message before about it. And they called it a tortoise, where they would actually physically make that shield above each other to cover.
Yep.
And then they'd just keep marching, stab, march, stab. And I'm like, but that physical picture is the spiritual picture of what we bring to relationships, what we bring to friendships, what we bring to work, what we bring to everything we try and step into. And that's what that light is about. And then read Ephesians 6. I mean,
Yeah.
words to live by.
Well, that's not exactly what I think about
Yeah.
anytime anybody mentions armor of God. So I did this message teaching one time in this hero in this men's group.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so at the moment, this is how I could relate
Curious.
it, right? Every man knows what it feels like to get kicked in the crotch.
I already knew where you were going.
Every man knows what it feels like.
It's not fun.
Like, as soon as you say it, guys go, oh.
We already reacted earlier with your story.
Exactly. It's like every man knows.
Yeah. It's not.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm having this feeling like I got kicked in the crotch. I don't know if it's sacrilegious or not.
I'm looking at an Eiffel Tower right
Like-
there now, and it's
Like,
Bring it
no,
to mind.
like, but it's like I got kicked in the crotch of my spirit.
you need to hand that to me.
Right.
Okay. And so the title of the message was Your Spirit Crotch. And, but it's like, you know that feeling. Okay.
You need the Eiffel Tower.
You know the feeling physically when that happens. You hurt on the inside. Everything hurts. Like there is a sickening feeling. There is a defeated, overwhelmed, like you want to throw up, you want to cry, you want to just lay down in the fetal position, right? And so at this moment in time, I'm going through this feeling. I have this feeling, and it's the only way I can relate it, like on the inside of me. It's like, man, my spirit just feels like it wants to curl into a fetal position. It wants to cry. Like, dude, I just got kicked. I don't know how. In the crotch of my spirit, and all of the inside of me is jacked up. And so I kind of like, my brain's weird. I ended up in the armor of God, and it's talking about girding up your loins
Yeah.
with the belt of truth. And so I started digging into this thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Because my dad used to joke, boy, I can't believe you're the fruit of my loins. And like, you know, I think it's funny. But like he still...
Smokey and the Bandit, isn't it?
he still says it sometimes. And but it's like, okay, so your loins, we're men, your loins, like what they would do, because they had these
Right.
long overshirt things that went past their knees, and they would take this thing and pull it up, like the back, they'd pull it through their legs,
Yeah.
and like wrap it and kind of tie it off
Yeah.
like a diaper. And it's like that was their whitey tighties. It's like they would gird up, keep everything safe and secure, and gird that up and put it in a belt so that they could move and so that they were protected and secure. And like, so in the middle of this, it's like, so the truth protects that area, the truth, who I am. And I began to look at where I was at and that feeling I had on the inside. And it's like I was believing all of these lies that the world was telling me, that the enemy was telling me, that all of this stuff is going on. I'm no good. I'm worthless. I never amount to anything.
all the lies.
Can't find a good job. But like all this stuff, dude, and it's just like repeated. And then as this area gets protected by truth, it's like, no, I'm not.
Right.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not below. Like, and so
still worried about the head, but
and so it's like there's this knowing now. There's this truth moment that protects, and as you get deep, it protects the area of reproduction.
yeah,
Of what you're going to produce
Right.
around you.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it just became this significant light bulb kind of moment. That feeling on the inside is because
yeah,
I don't have the truth about who I am protecting me. I'm buying into lies and leaving myself open for a dirty game of Rochambeau.
It's funny because you're talking about the flaming arrows, the darts coming at you, the lies spoken over you, and I always likened it because I'm a Matrix guy. I love it. So I'm like, you get to this point where you see the bullets and you're just kind of turning and glazing and moving. I like to think I'm that flexible.
I know I'm not.
but that's that's that explanation in a way. It's like it comes at you slower, and you're able to notice it and adjust, and that's where that vulnerability, that's where that likeness, that's where that relatability, that's where everything steps into process, right?
Yep.
So
I kind of want to jump back to something you were saying too, because talking about going through those moments and having those conversations with God and sometimes, I think if every person on the planet is honest, we've had those moments of mad at God and don't understand, and the old picture, raising your hand in the fist in the air, and that kind of thing. And I think I was telling you guys a couple weeks ago where I was listening to this guy who, convicted felon, and I'm not going to go into all of his story, but he's
the mortgage guy, right?
No. This was like,
This is the testimony link that you said.
yeah. This dude was in a drug deal gone wrong, and shots were fired, and he ended up killing somebody. So he's a convicted murderer. He's a felon, violent offense, all of those things, and this miraculous transformation that he goes through in prison as he's contemplating suicide, God speaks to him. And so anyway, fast forward, and he's out and he's looking for a job. And of course, nobody wants to hire a felon, number one. Nobody wants to hire a violent felon, number two. Nobody definitely wants to hire a convicted murderer. And he's talking about, he got a job, and like 3 days later, the paperwork came in and they're like, dude, we got to let you go. You've worked great, all of those things, but we can't have you. And so, he's talking about going through this moment where remembering church people, like, okay, well, if that's not what God has, he always has something better, right? And he goes, but I got to this place where better or worse, yes or no, if it was fast or slow, I knew that God wouldn't fail me. No matter what the outcome was, because we're always looking for the better. We're looking for kind of that cliche, if God closes a door, he opens a window. Like, I don't know nothing about that. I think that's terrible. Anyway.
That's great singing.
But, and it's where I got to, as I was mentioning, where Jen and I got to with our daughter laying in a hospital. She's 18 months old.
Yeah.
The whole left side of her's all scratched up. She's got broken this and punctured that and lacerated this. And, we got to a place where God, no matter what you do, our relationship with you isn't going to change.
Yeah.
Right.
No matter what the outcome, how I feel about you, my relationship with you will not change. And I think that's, and it may not be the fullness of the fruit of that conversation, but I think it's so far down the road of your relationship and understanding. And it takes a truly vulnerable, emotional, to get to God no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. If I don't understand it, God, if you take her home for the short amount of time that we've had her,
Yeah.
how I feel about you will not change. And it's really a place where we connect, and God goes, I see your heart now. And so I was relating kind of that feeling, that moment, that for me it was a revelation, because I'm waiting for a promotion. It's like I've been told it's right around the corner. It's like, and I need it. Don't get me wrong. It's like,
Right.
I need the monetary increase because we're living at a deficit,
Right.
kind of thing. It's like, and I'm looking for it. And I'm looking for it. And God, I heard you say something's going to happen, but I'm stuck on only the, okay, so this is the thing, this is the thing, this is the thing. And it's like we heard, okay, God, I know his voice. I've heard him speak to me, not audibly,
Right.
but that knowing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to move in January. Something's going to happen. And my wife, we're in agreement. We're praying on this thing. It's like January, something's going to happen. And it's January 31st. And I'm sitting in my truck. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm listening to this radical transformation of this convicted felon. And my heart connects and says, God, I want my heart to be that. God, I don't care. Better, worse, yes, no, fast or slow.
Yeah.
I know you won't fail me. And whatever the outcome, our relationship doesn't change. Right. I'm not hinged on you producing something for me, even though you told me.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, at the end of the day, I know you cannot fail. There's an entire history of you never failing. Why would I bank on a moment, on a possibility that you might, when I know you can't?
What's your Isaac? Right?
You
think about the moments in the Bible, right? Isaac is Abraham's one and only son. How could you lay down your biggest idol in front of me? And how could I make you that much greater?
Cool. And I think that.
But even God to Jesus. I did it with my own son.
Yep.
To save you.
I think Abraham and Isaac is also a great picture of never stop listening.
Right.
Now, I'm serious.
100%.
Because sometimes we'll hear God say something and we just take off like bulls in a china shop
Yes.
and stop listening. This is what God said, this is what God said, this is what God said. Well, why'd you stop listening? You know, because if Abraham just ran up to the top of the mountain,
Yeah. Isaac wouldn't be here.
he would have sacrificed his promise,
Right.
because that's what Isaac was a promise. He would have sacrificed the promise when God had something else in store.
Right.
But anyway, like, so 10:30, and I like this revelation lands in my lap, and again, it's like one of those things I just start eating up. And I was like, God, this is my different today. This is my heart. This is what I want it to be. And you know, day goes on. I think it was 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. We're almost at the end of the work day. And, you know, I work a lot out of my vehicle. We're in a neighborhood, and, you know, how guys do. We drive up next to each other, and you roll down the windows, and you have that conversation blocking traffic for everyone. But my boss comes up, and he gets out of his car, and he walks to my car about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And he goes, hey, I don't want to get your hopes up. He's like, but I want to show you something. And there's an email chain. And HR is asking my boss's boss, hey, Jason's been here X amount of time. What are we doing with him? And my boss's boss forwarding and responding to my boss, hey, what are we doing? What's your recommendation? And my boss's response under that to both of them, promote him. This is 4 o'clock on January 31st. Right on time. But I honestly believe, yes, I heard and there was faith that God would move, but God was waiting for a moment of heart change where he could, where there wasn't the pressure of performing, it's just relationship. God, I know you got me no matter what it looks like. And so at 0 hour, at that moment, I was like, I got the word. I'm waiting on the physical manifestation. I'm not worried anymore. Like, the word has come through and it fulfilled what I heard. It's still January.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And from that, it's like faith is built because I know that he hears. I know that he cares. I know that he's actively operating and moving in my life. And sometimes it just takes me changing my heart, changing my perspective. God, if I don't get this promotion, if he shows up and says, look, we can't use you, we can't hire, God, I know you can't fail. And my relationship with you won't change. And he's like, I got you. And then, you know, the story goes on. It gets really crazy after that, but I don't want to tie up all of our time. It was an amazing day. And I honestly believe it started with heart change. It started with God, you know me, a vulnerable, God, you know what I need. God, you know what I need more than I know what I need.
Right.
Well, and I think it's also very similar to the story with Jesus in the boat with the 12 disciples, and the storm comes, and he's sound asleep, and they're freaking out, and they have to go and wake him up, and he's like, do you not know who's in the boat?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Whoa, little faith individuals.
Yeah, calm. Have you not seen what I'm capable of? Calm your nerves. And that kind of brings me back to that emotional health and the vulnerability. Like, whenever it comes to emotional health, and we talked about this in immersion, whenever we were going through immersion, and one thing that's kind of bugged me that I see a lot is some people get caught up in this, we're horrible, we're imperfect, and no matter what I do, I can't do it right. And we get caught in this mental health cycle of we're not worthy of the things that God has in store for us. And we beat ourselves up over that, when I think the perspective should be, yes, I am. I need to know where I came from. Like I've got a shirt that's got Jesus peeking through the clouds and he says, disappointments, all of you, and it's funny, but it's true. Like we are, and we have to know where we came from, and we have to know that without him, we are. Like we're disappointments.
Right.
But we can't live in that. And I think if we get into a headspace and our emotional health is at a place where we can understand that with Jesus,
Well,
we are capable of anything. We can't do it on our own, and I feel like there are a lot of people that are sitting in this, that they're Christians and they have a good relationship, but they're caught in the
we're good.
so
ankle. Hang on.
Cramp.
But they're caught in the I'm not worthy. I can't do anything right. And they live in that fleshy side. And I think they need to make that transition and understand that once you have that relationship, once you have the Holy Spirit, like that's where that faith comes from. That's where you need to look at things with a different perspective and handle things in a different manner and have that faith and have that confidence in what is coming at you and your ability to overcome it. Not because of what I'm capable of, but because of what I'm capable of with Christ, right? And that strength, that steadfast understanding that he has great things in store for me. They may not be on my timeline,
Or
and
where
they're
I
usually
think they
not,
are.
or what you think they are, And with that perspective, I think that your mental health is a lot better. I think that it helps you handle those tough situations.
Right.
I think it helps you maybe not always understand the tough situations, but know that as long as you run into the storm and not with the storm, you're going to get through it quicker, right? If I see the storm coming and I try and outrun it, I'm going to end up running with the storm the entire time. But if I see that storm and I know that if I run head first at it with Christ, I'm going to get through it quicker because it's going this way and I'm going that way. And whatever's on that other side, he's going to have a blessing for me.
Yeah.
well, conceptually, we're just living by sight, right?
Right.
And Hebrews 11:1, like just boom, straight into my mind. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see.
Right.
I mean, that's it.
Well, I mean, it's what we do not see. That's what faith is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're dying by what you see.
But
You let it control you.
even with that, faith for me is built on a past of God proving himself faithful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like there's evidence.
Mm-hmm.
There's evidence that wasn't seen. There's substance to the things that I hope for, because I can look back time and time and time again where God has come through in my life, and knowing that he can't fail, and knowing that he wants the best for me, knowing that he cares about me. And so the next thing that comes up, there's growth and we grow. Our faith has to grow, but it's like, it's not blind,
Right.
because there's evidence.
Yeah.
There's evidence behind, heck, how I got here, how we all got here. And
That's that.
I call those faith builder type moments where it's like, I know what God has done.
Right. That's that sight. That's that vision of seeing those bullets fly by and maneuvering from them or girding yourself up, So
Yeah.
But that's it. That's it. 100%.
Well, I think as we're winding this one down, because I don't even know where we ended up, but I will say this to kind of, because we hit a lot of points from your mental health, to being vulnerable, to finding your tribe, your people, your guys. Be wise in your vulnerability. I will say that as well. Don't go telling your business to everybody. Everybody doesn't need to know it. It's like there's overdoers on both ends of the spectrum, where not everybody needs to know your problems. But there are those that are there to walk with you, to stand for you when you can't stand.
Right.
And that truly is a brotherhood of believers that you can trust and lean on. And, if you wrestle with mental health, issues, get help. See somebody. I think in the past, the church has done a poor job with mental health because it's been demonized from, oh, well, you can't have a sickness in your mind. You can have a bad heart. You can have bad lungs. You can't have bad mental health. That's automatically, some kind of demon or something. And it's like, but you go to the doctor if your heart's jacked up. You go to the doctor if your lungs jacked up. If there is truly an issue, get help, talk to people, and do that as a believer. Do that,
Right.
with your spiritual authority, aware and what's going on, and being able to be vulnerable with those people that help you stay accountable, that you trust, that you lean on, and they'll help you and walk through it as well. And
Well, and I think also if you don't have those people, I think
Find
that
them.
the church has done a lot better job at making those things accessible to you. If they don't have a counselor on staff that you can sit down and talk with, they typically build relationships with Christian counselors that they can direct you to.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people, I was at a point in my life where I didn't have anyone that I could talk to. And if I were in a situation where I needed to talk to somebody, I think there are a lot of churches now that have worked that into their ministry, that there is somebody on staff that can help triage issues that you're having. And if that's not enough, they absolutely have the connections and the capability to get you where you need to, and to one that is a believer, that's faith-based, and that can direct you wisely.
But that's where also to engage in relationships.
Absolutely.
Engage in groups. Go to a men's event. Go to a group. Go to find commonality, because everybody needs to be led and everybody needs to follow.
Well, I think I think you bring up a great point that the men's groups, and you lead one, I believe, right? In our church? Or you did?
Yeah, I've led
Multiple
men's groups and different things.
Like, that is an absolute great place to go to sit down and have conversations and understand that you're probably not the only person that's dealing with what you're dealing with.
You're definitely
Or-
not the only person.
Right. And that somebody's probably already been there, done that, and can help walk with you through it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's just nice to sit at the table with guys and have good conversation. But yeah, I mean, that's a
Wait
great
till our
point.
wives come to this table and you'll see how jacked up we really are.
They're coming.
Well,
They've been invited.
again, if this is your first time with us, jump back, check out some of those previous episodes. We cover a lot of stuff. We roughly have topics, and we really spend a lot of time. Honestly, being vulnerable, sharing our heart, sharing our stories, sharing where we're at. We don't know it all. We don't have it all together. But we know the one who does. Mm-hmm. So I'm not looking for an answer, because I've got the answer. But we want you to be encouraged. We want you to be different, to be better. and we appreciate so much that you have listened with us. You've joined. You're watching. Like and subscribe. I believe everything's listed. I say the same thing pretty much every time because I don't know where anything is on the YouTube. I believe everything's listed in the comments and stuff. You can find us on Spotify, on YouTube. We've got Instagram and Facebook and all of those things.
TikTok.
Oh, yeah. James is doing a TikTok. We're going to start dancing. But
Are you seriously?
We're on TikTok.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Apparently, we're on TickTok too.
I don't even have TikTok.
But we appreciate you spending time with us. Join us. Join us again soon. Again, for myself, for John, for Jeff, we just want to thank you. We love you.
Yeah.
And catch us next week.